Hi guys, welcome back to my Steps to Sobriety, my show on YouTube and as a podcast with me, your host, Stefan Neff. Today is another cool day for an interview and I've got Linda Krauss Barnett with me. Linda is a master of rebooting your life. And she has a cool story to tell how she came to that title. And I can actually do with that right now, because as we speak, this has been a few brutal weeks and I have worked crazy hours, self-inflicted, please. It is, but it's still the same. And I'm wondering where my spark has gone. You get up and go, went up and left without me. And so I think it's time to talk to Linda. So Linda, thank you so much for coming onto my show.
Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be here. And yes, a life reboot is cyclical, so it's not like a one and done. So there will be points in our life when we reboot and then we find ourselves in a dip again and in a spin. So so glad we can work on this together. We're gonna reboot you right back up.
Absolutely. Oh, yes, please. Yes, please. I'm in need for it. But so, I mean, when you were 4 or 5, you didn't really think, hey, I'm going to be a master of rebooting my life. When you were a little girl, what did you want to be? What did you want to
I'm surprised I didn't, because I'm a little bit psychic, but no, I didn't think I wanted to be a master of Reboot Your Life, but I knew that I had a bigger purpose. I knew that I was meant to make an impact. I think knowing that at a young age is one of the things that made adulthood a bit of a struggle, because when life felt plaid and when life felt like it didn't have the effervescence that I wanted it to, I felt like maybe I had gone wrong. Like that little girl that thought she was going to be something great and have a huge effect on the world. Was I wrong? Is that just a lie that I told myself? And that is one of the awarenesses I had is, how does it that this little girl who knew she was meant to do big things is now living a life of mediocrity? And those dreams don't match up with the life I was living.
Did your parents foster that kind of belief? I mean, what was sort of the first memory you've got to that where you said, yes, I will do some fantastic stuff?
Well, I didn't think I was going to save the world, but I knew that I was going to be really able to make human connections very well. I was good at that very young. I think my parents contributed to that in the sense that there was a lot of strife in the home between my parents, and I was a pretty decent mediator. I always tried to kind of make the peace and make things right. And I realized that I thought I was really good at it, and it became something that I always brought into all my relationships that need to, what does she need? What does he need? How can I give love or give something in a way? And I had that ability to kind of tune in and read people's energy really well, so I could give them what I thought they needed to be happy in that moment. And for a while, it was really effective. The problem began when I stopped doing that for myself. The problem began when I started to worry so much about the light in others and worry so much about making sure that other people's energy was aligned that I never stopped to worry how I was doing. And when I finally did, I realized that I had let it go far too long.
So true. Because we are there to please everyone else. We put everyone else before ourselves. And I'm as guilty as charged. So is my wife. So is a lot of people. So are a lot of people around me. So a lot of people will nod their head now listening to the both of us.
Exactly. And women, not to isolate women, but it's to isolate women. It's just, we're really kind of, the mom culture that we're exposed to is really one of giving, not receiving. We're taught that that is the way to embody love, especially for your children, especially for your spouses, is to give. And when you're in a giving mode, then you're doing a good job of loving. But the truth needs to be rewritten, because the truth and part of what the book is meant, the intention behind the book, the message the book is meant to convey is that when you are not in a state of receiving and when you are only in a state of giving, what you give it's like quality over quantity. If I'm giving 24 hours a day to my children, but those 24 hours a day are at a low vibration with anger and resentment and a frown and a scowl on my face, would they be better served with 8 hours of a really present, energetic, happy mother who's taken some other hours away from them to work on herself so that she could provide and be the best version of herself? So I think that that's a formula that we've gotten wrong. And I hope that my message and my book are going to help recreate that for women moving forward.
Oh, please. So true. Since we're already at your book, what's the name of your book? Come on, show it.
So the name of my book is called Reboot Your Life, Bring Back Your Spark, because the reason I decided to really go through a life reboot, what I called a life reboot, was that in a nutshell, I realized that my spark, my soul shine was dimmed and I couldn't find it. And so the journey to bring that back to my life was what I called a life reboot.
Let me go back to when you said you were a mediator and good in human connection. Was that because you wanted to be in control of the situation? That you wanted to feel less powerless?
Probably. I don't think I knew it at the time because I was so young, but I think that when boundaries are not set with children, when you allow them to have more control and more power than developmentally is appropriate, there is a sense of like, well, I feel powerless. What can I do to feel more in control of the situation? And so I definitely think that's what happened. And I think that was one of the reasons that I became a woman who tried so hard to control. I tried to control my husband. I tried to control, the kids. And what I didn't realize at the time was that tightness, that control that I thought was keeping the wheels spinning, that I thought was keeping the machine working, was actually one of the fundamental reasons that everything was spinning out of control. So yes, to your very, very intuitive question. Thank you for
it is
that amazing psychic tap. Thank you.
No, it is what it is. It is a question that arose for my own life because I often find myself having very weird dreams and I could not make head or tail of them. And ultimately, last year, it boiled down to essentially me recognizing that I was suffering from a form of PTSD due to being on the receiving end of some gang violence. So, and all my dreams, they were not gory, etc., anything that you would see in a Hollywood film or something like that. No, but it was dreams where I would be in a new place. Now, I would have lost my wallet, I would have lost my camera, my phone, I would be somewhere where I think I know I am, but not really, and I would be pretty clueless, helpless, hopeless kind of a thing, and I would be struggling in my dream I would jump onto a train to get there, and then the train would go past where I need to be. So it was always, and then with hindsight, once I actually had some help to explore some of those things, I figured out it was all about this helplessness, about this lack of control, and quite intriguing insight where I have to say, yes, of course, I want to control absolutely everything. And in all fairness, we try to do in our lives, we try that. You as a mummy and you as you as a woman, not mummy, as a woman, you try to juggle absolutely every role. I know you already a little bit here. We have spoken before, and I know you that you are a go-getter. You're sorting the kids out. You're sorting with your little toe. You make dinner, and then whilst you're publishing another book, kind of that behind you. So that's cool. That's cool. But it is. I'm in control. I run the show. And you define yourself as that. It's just beautiful when it works. Then it doesn't work so well. So
I love that. And let me tell you why I love that so much, because this is what's coming up for me when you say that, is that we all have this belief ingrained in us that we have the power of control, that we can, in fact, manipulate our lives to really force it into place, right? And I think that that's not really what we're meant for. I don't think that's the flow that is our birthright. And so I think what happens is the tighter we control, it's like it gets tighter and tighter and tighter until what it looks like to us is we hit our low. And I know from talking to people time and time again who I've interviewed through my book series, it all boils down to the same thing. When you have a rising phoenix story, when you have someone who's risen from the ashes, they will all, in their own very unique way, tell you the same thing, that I had to hit my low in order to come back up. Because eventually what happens is the tightness and the control breaks that little thread that's holding it all together. It just snaps it. And it's in that moment of, I'm sick of being sick and I'm tired of being tired. And you can no longer give energy to the control because you're just out of it. Mm-hmm. And it's in that beautiful moment that we all really don't love to remember, but what we fail to realize is that's the moment of change. That's the moment that made you reborn. Mm-hmm. And it's in that moment that we all do the same thing. We surrender. Mm-hmm. I called it turning it off and wait in my book because it was my reboot. But the truth is, it's a release, it's a surrender. It's that moment when we finally say, all right, someone else needs to drive this car because I can't. And when we release that control is when we start to get our life back, because we realize and we learn how the universe really works. And we learn that it's always working for us. We learn the mindsets and the beliefs and the intentions, and the limiting beliefs start to unlock. But it's amazing how we have to suffer to get to that point. I know it would be a beautiful thing if creation was just naturally in tune to that. But then I think that would negate our contrast and it would. This is the human experience. So I do agree with you 100%, but it's that low point that created the life reboot. It's the low point that created so many of us. Our story is in that moment on our knees where we said, I surrender. That was the change.
So true. So true. When you say surrender, you could take that religiously. Do you believe in God? Are you a Christian yourself?
I believe in God. I don't subscribe to religion. I believe in Buddhism. I believe that every religion has beautiful, beautiful things to take from them. And so I am all religions. Just, I know that's very much against what religious, doctrination will tell you is possible, but it is possible because it's easy to look at many different faiths and say, wow, there's beauty here and there's beauty here. I think like all things, it's the confinement, it's the control that only one way is right, only my way is right, only my truth is real, and if you, it's that thing where you say, people, be honest, tell me the truth. But what we really need to reframe that as is tell me your truth and I'll tell you mine.
Exactly.
Because they're all from a personal perspective based on our life experience. And the more we try to control, then the more we lose control, And so, yes, I believe in God, source, universe. I know there's so many names right now. I believe in an intelligent power greater than myself. But I also believe in my ability to co-create with this intelligence force. I don't believe that I'm a victim of anything or anybody. I take full responsibility for my life and the choices I make, whatever anybody chooses to call that.
And that's really beautiful the way you phrase that. I subscribe exactly to the same belief system. I call myself a humanist. I believe in good and bad, and I don't necessarily believe in the Christian God or in Allah or anything like that. But I believe that there are good forces and bad forces out there, and I try to be a good man. I try to be a man with humility and backbone. I try to be an effective leader, and that comes with taking ownership of your own actions and what is happening in your sphere of influence. So we very much think alike there. And I think that's quite important when we use words that can be taken or hijacked by a religious meaning, like the surrender to God, do penance, whip yourself bloody because that's the only way forward. That's not what we are talking about here.
No.
We are talking about essentially admitting that you are at your wit's end and that what you have been doing is not working. And that right now it's time to stop, press the pause button, get off the wheel, as you call it in your book, and actually stop being the hamster and going nuts and just trying to be faster. This is not a workout, okay? This is you running yourself into a grave, and stop to think for a moment. Pause.
Absolutely. And whatever it is that people would like to name things, because people have this, really great need for labels and to call things very specifically by name. But, when we're in a controlled state, we we'll look for answers, we'll ask for clarity, but we're not able to see it. Because all we see, we're so focused on the problem, there's no room for solutions. And so what I mean in the sense of what you're saying, my surrender, or I'd rather call it release of control, is that you tend to step away from the problem. You tend to be removed. So you're an observer now. And that's what happened to me. It's like it's this fight I had with my husband a million times before. And in each time I had this fight with my husband, I was so engaged in the problem. I was so ready to tell him the next little nugget of goodness that I had to tell him about how wrong he was, that I left no room for the solution to come. And when I finally heard myself as an observer of the argument, and I was able, it's almost like this Zen moment happened, and I heard all of it as if I wasn't in it. And I heard myself for the very first time. And I heard the words I was using and the intention and the resentment and the anger in which I was speaking it. And I thought to myself, he's tuning me out, but I would tune him out as well if he was speaking to me that way. Like, no one should have someone speak to them this way. But I had just really never I was so in the midst of a blame game with my husband that I never heard my part in it. And when I finally let go of control, I was able to release from the problem, detach quite a bit, which is that turn off and wait, and look at it from almost like a third person point of view. And I said, you're begging this man to love you. If you are begging for love, that can only mean one thing. You no longer love yourself, and you cannot ask someone to give you what you cannot give yourself. And honestly, the best way to get control is to release and release. And sometimes we have to shut down in order to upgrade the system when we turn back on. That's why the title is so appropriate for the concept that I'm trying to teach and the message I'm trying to get across. Because we have electronics and we're so in tune with our phone. We're much more in tune with our phone than we are our genetics. And
so true.
Right? So when my phone if I have my phone off and I turn it on and it says upgrade to OS 11.4, there's no option to deny the upgrade. I can't tell my phone, no, thank you. You know what? I love my glitches. I pretty much prefer the slow path on this phone. So no, thank you. We're so excited. We automatically say, yes, please give me the upgrade. And then we can't wait to see how much faster, how much better everything runs. But we are an energetic software. And so we're built much the same way, and we have to accept our upgrades.
And so true, so true. And we don't recognize what is necessary for our system to work. With the
Right.
computer, you have to plug it in. You need to get some energy. Makes sense. When was the last time you were actually thinking about the energies that you put into yourself? From starting at the very basic fundamental needs, your sleep, your hydration, your healthy, yummy food. And with that, I don't mean the cheesecake, guys. I love my cheesecake, but please, no, that's not what we're talking today. So these are the absolute fundamentals. And then is all the other energies, the creativity, the spirituality, the all these beautiful things that are out there. But if you don't do the basics right, your body is not ready to get any kind of creative and spiritual if you're dehydrated to the nth degree, because A, you're hungover from the night before, and B, you haven't drunk anything. Duh. Okay. And that was my old problem. I mean, that's for crying out loud. I read probably every self-help book that is possibly out there. Okay, Tony Robbins, get all your CDs, okay? I listened to them, okay? Probably with a glass of wine in my hand. So I listened to them, but did I do the action? Nah. Did I look after myself? Nah. Neuro-linguistic programming? Oh, yeah, I could tell you about that. Did I actually do something on a very basic level? No. So talk about the Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde here kind of happening. And that is sort of what a lot of people I know are doing out there. And it's just, that's human nature. There's only so much you can read, but it's quite good that, well, you guys that are out there and are listening and watching this, there's a damn good reason that you're doing that. So welcome to the show, because this is hopefully where we plant seeds and where you hopefully have Linda and me opening your eyes to new opportunities, to new growth, to a new path that might have been all obstructed by weeds. So let us be the weed hackers here and open a bit up and teach you that actually, yes, from now and then, stop and think is so powerful. I love it how you described it when you had the first time, this mindful moment that you sort of stepped out of yourself and saw your own behavior contributing to the row with your husband. What was his response when you did that?
Probably shock. As you can well imagine, I'm sure, when I'm in it to win it. So I walked away from very few fights in my marriage, as I'm sure is no surprise. But in this particular moment, when I finally said, I think I walked away for two reasons. One, I walked away is because I realized I was powerless to change him in that moment, because I wasn't coming at it from a place of love. And as soon as I realized, I knew where I had gone wrong in my message. And secondly, I walked away because it was such a deep, full epiphany for me to admit to myself that I had been on autopilot for so long, that I had created a life less than what I wanted it to be, and that I had been responsible for that. It was devastating to know that I had no love inside of me for me, and that here I was raising two children. I was about to lose a marriage, and all of a sudden I realized that if all of this were to fall apart, I had a huge part to play in it. And it almost took my breath away. So part of the reason I walked away from the fight was this deep weight of, oh my goodness, what have you done? And how in the world are you going to go about undoing your damage? It's like, the devastation after a hurricane. You're like, there's a lot of damage here, and I don't even know where to start. And it was a big moment for me. So I did the only reasonable thing a woman could do. I took a shower and cried for a very long time. And then I looked in the mirror. I came out of the shower and I looked in the mirror, and I did something different, because what is it that Einstein says, do the same thing and expecting different results I don't know the saying, but it's like the definition of crazy.
Of insanity. Yeah.
Yes. And so this time I decided, I looked in the mirror and have hated and spoke horribly to this woman that is looking back at me for so long. And today, if I'm going to love her, then I have to show up for her. I have to love her if I want her to love me back. And I looked in the mirror and I just said, I'm here for you and I love you. And it felt really awkward. And I'm glad I was alone in the bathroom because I might have seemed a little crazy, but I have to tell you, it was a deeply spiritual moment in my life because I was being there for myself. I was rescuing myself. I was loving myself. I wasn't waiting for my husband to come into the bathroom and tell me everything's going to be okay. I love you. I wasn't waiting for my husband to come in and say, I'm going to be here for you. I'm going to hold you up and save you. I wasn't waiting on that. I was giving it to myself. I was providing it for me. And that was the beginning of a very long, very twisty road, but one that I would never, ever change for anything in the world because it is a road that has led me to all the potential that is locked inside of me.
Self-love. It is such a corny word, but it
Right.
means so much when you actually really understand it, that you actually respect yourself. You demand the respect from everyone else, yet when you look at yourself, you see every single flaw, you see every single thing that possibly could be wrong with you, and you focus on it. And you are your worst critic, for crying out loud. Where was that? Yesterday, I made someone a compliment. And this woman turned around, looked at me quite suspiciously. What do you mean? What do you want to say? What are you really telling me? And I said, you look really stunning in what you're wearing there. And your hair is just gorgeous. Okay, I have to go now. She could not take this compliment. She could not. And that is reflected in so many people I know, so many women I know who are drop dead gorgeous. And they look at themselves and say, oh, no, look, I'm ugly because I've got that little spot there. All the rest doesn't compute whatsoever. And it's that hypercritical tearing apart of yourself that is so soul destroying. And it is amazing that you had this revelation, because that revelation turned you into a very different woman. How did the relationship change with your husband? I assume it changed.
It did change, and it took time. This is not meant to give the illusion of an overnight fix and a magic pill. That is not what a reboot is. A reboot is exactly what it sounds. It's a systematic process. It's something, the reason that when you unplug a device, they'll tell you wait before you plug it back in is because there's, you haven't you ever asked why when I unplug my cable box, do I have to wait and count to 1,000? And when you really ponder that question energetically for a human, when you would say, well, why would I wait? It's because there's answers in the silence. We talk so much, we forget to listen. It's like that is where the knowledge lies. It's not in your words. You know what you think and you know what you're going to say. So you're only educating yourself on what you already know when you're talking. But it's like, if you listen to the world, to nature, to sounds, to whatever it is you call that life force in the universe, when you are in an aware, open state, then you get synchronicity, you get messages, you get answers, you get so much flow. I mean, one of the reasons my life wasn't working is because I had this limiting false belief that anything that anybody felt, did, or thought was somehow able to be controlled by me, that I had this super power to just dictate how everything was going to go. And there was a lot of confusion, but very little clarity. And when I began my journey of self-love, and when I did it, listened and began to kind of really be open to, okay, what next? I found that there were really answers all around me. I found that when in life, I know people have names for it because don't we love names again, but the law of attraction or, all these concepts and laws of the universe. But you find as you explore them that there's some validity to it. Now some people find it in religion, some people find it in quantum physics, some people find it in science, spirituality. It doesn't matter. The premise is the same, that when you're connected to yourself and to those around you, when you listen more than you talk, when you give yourself the respect, as you said, that you deserve, when you teach others how to love you because you're doing it yourself, and others see the amount of sovereignty and reverence that you have in your own world, they emulate that. It's basically you saying, here's what you need. Here are the requirements for entering my bubble. And there's no going back once you have that kind of knowledge. There's just, I will rise and fall for the rest of my life because, again, that's part of my process. But I'll never do it in the way I did it 4 years ago. I'll never go back to that kind of rigidity, to that kind of hate and resentment, because what I find is what's fixed my marriage, what's made me a better mother, is even when I believe I'm right, even when I want to have the fight, even when I'm angry, if I come at the problem with love, the solution is right around the corner. And that's what ultimately fixed my marriage is, yes, honey, here are the things that I resent. I mean, again, it wasn't overnight and it wasn't perfect and it wasn't as sweet as I'm making it sound right now. But ultimately, as I began to go towards my husband with an open heart, when I began to go to my husband and say, I take responsibility for what isn't working in our marriage. This wasn't all your fault. And I made you feel like it was. And I'm sorry. When I began to tell my kids, mommy needs some time away right now. You go to your room. I'm going to go to mine. I'm going to take an hour and I'm going to be myself and you be yourself. And I love you so much. And as soon as that hour's up, we're going to spend great time together. And then when that time was up and I was present and fun and alive and happy and fulfilled, I was a better mom. And, I'm still working on it, but it's the secret sauce.
And it makes it so yummy suddenly, isn't it? It's not just the old leftovers where there is no spark in there. It's the secret sauce. So I agree, 100% agree. Exactly same happened here. It was the same, exactly same journey. And it is the walking the walk, not talking the talk. When I came out of rehab, I expected fanfares and rose petals on my path. And nah, there was nothing waiting for me there. They had heard it all before, and I thought, okay. And I always say the example of that I was pissed off with my children because they never washed up. And here I found myself actually starting to wash up myself and just did it. And I just did things that previously would have caused friction, etc. And suddenly by me actually modeling the behavior that I found appropriate, suddenly people sort of thought, whoa, okay. And suddenly things changed. And they changed slowly. Absolutely. They changed. And it would have taken months and years for us, for my wife and me and my children and me, to develop those relationships that we have now. And they are by no means perfect and always rosy and always happy, because that's not what life is. There's always some shit happening somewhere. But I accept it for what it is, and we roll with the punches. But we roll as a unit. We allow ourselves to be human beings. And there will be days when my sons just feel rotten and they don't want to talk, and that's cool. And I will not label them as self-entitled bloody teenagers, whilst they might be, that's another story. But I don't need to rub it into their face. You have got a bad day. You can have a bad day. There's nothing wrong with that. Just go into your room and just chill out and play and do whatever you need to do, and give yourself some sanity. Those kind of mental health days, so to speak. Yes, that's very real because you need them. Okay. I think it was Abraham Lincoln who said, if I had 8 hours to chop down a tree, then I would use 6 hours to sharpen the saw or the axe. And there is something to be said about that. It is, you need to sharpen your own saw. You need to look after yourself. And then suddenly you are able to give. It is that the concept of Stephen Covey, the emotional bank account, that you cannot always take out of the account. You need to put something in to actually be able to use that account. So no, if you can't strip yourself bare all the time and then expect somehow miraculously that everything works.
My wish for everyone is that, there's all this wisdom through us, through our messages, through our, through all these wonderful light makers in the world who are trying to shine light. But at the end of the day, it's your experience. If you are like the rest of us who have to hit rock bottom before you rise back up, but it is my hope that when you hear other people's experience, when you see that someone has been down that road, that you take the road less traveled and that you say, if they did it and it didn't work, then maybe I can circumvent that. Maybe there's wisdom in their life experience. I wish I can impart that on my own children, like learn from my mistakes instead of repeating them just so that you could have your own experience. And I know that's necessary for each of us to experience it from our perspective and through our lens. But just at least if there's any message I would leave everybody with, this is the lasting message I want you to know from my life, from my work, from my book, is that no matter where you are, no matter how old you are, no matter what phase of life you're in, and no matter how good or bad this moment seems, change is possible.
Oh, yeah.
Tomorrow could look so dramatically different than today. It would shock you. And all it takes is that intention from you. All it takes is the choice from you to say, I'm sick of being sick and I'm tired of being tired and I'm done with being done. And I know that there's so much more. And when, if not now, when, and I ask you to just also ask yourself, like, okay, this was a pivotal moment for me. And if you ask yourself this question, what if nothing changes? What if nothing changes? And if you are satisfied with that answer, then wonderful. But 4 years ago, if someone had said to me, what if nothing changes? I might have been seriously sad about the answer to that question, because nothing changing was absolutely not an option. And if you find yourself answering with, that's not an option, then when does change begin?
So true. So true. But you need to be ready for it. You had this pivotal moment, and this was one of the best moments in your life, no doubt. And we all have the opportunity to see such moments and experience them if we are open for them. If we keep closing and trying with all our might to keep close, to keep our masks up, to not listen to out there, then it's a sad life. It's a shame. But it is good to feel yourself so far out of your comfort zone that you just simply know you have to change. And that's a beautiful point. That's a beautiful point, your low point. And every single guest on my show, every single guest without fail, will tell you that again and again, that it is the low points that, with hindsight, are so magical because they are the catalyst to change. Whilst had they not occurred, you would have just continued living this painful, soul-destroying life that was so wrong for you with hindsight. but it took such a long time to recognize it for what it was.
Absolutely.
Oh, Linda, thank you so much for sharing all these insights. Thank you very much for writing your book, for that matter, and actually being so honest about it, because it takes humility and it takes guts to actually talk about these things and own up to them. It's the ownership of your part of the story that is often so lacking in people's minds. It's all someone else's fault. And it seems to be getting worse in my experience. Everyone tries to blame someone else for it. The Jocko Willink's book, Extreme Ownership, of actually taking on what is happening in your sphere of influence, and saying, okay, it is my fault. Not in a oh God, I'm going to whip myself now, but actually saying, yes, it is my fault, because if the man there stuffed up, then I maybe have not taught him well, or I wasn't as clear in my message to him in the order. Well, Jocko Willink is a SEAL instructor, so obviously he comes from a military background, but the message is very clear. So to actually ask the question, why is something happening, and where have I contributed to that, and what can I do to change that in the future? Not, oh, you need to change because you're so nasty, and look what you did yesterday and 20 years ago. Can you remember 20 years ago? You bastard. Yeah,
Pretty much. So all our fights.
yeah, isn't it? Okay, so I've just condensed the whole fight into 10 seconds, guys, just to speed up the interview a bit. But but please, God, no, it is.
And you know what? When you are busy trying to change everyone else, you're going to stay stuck. And as soon as you take responsibility and you own that you contributed to the problem, and therefore, if I help to create this problem, can I help to solve it? And the good news about that is that you take back the power to help solve your own problems, because waiting on someone else to do it, saving yourself is an inside job. And once you figure that out, you are well on your way to rescue that you need.
Love it, the way you put it, the inside job. I love that. Hey, tell me, where can people find your book, and where can we learn more about you and your journey?
Okay, so you can find me on Facebook, Linda Krauss Barnett. I also have a private Facebook community that is basically a community of rebooters just like us, who know that change is possible, and they want other people who are trying to go through it, have been through it. So it's a beautiful space that we've created to allow people who are looking for change or want change. And that group is called The Life Reboot by Linda Krauss Barnett. I also have a website, lindakraussbarnett.com, and my book can be found on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Target. It's on Kindle and Nook. So if you just Google the name of my book, all the vendors will come up.
Brilliant, brilliant. And guys, just look down there into the description of the YouTube or of the podcast. All the links will be there. Linda, thank you so much for sharing your time, your passion. Thank you for your efforts in trying to make this world a little bit of a better place, because I think right now it can do with all the help that it can get, this world. So let the two of us continue on our paths. And it was so great to have you on my show.
Thank you so much. It was great to be here. And thank you for all the work that you do for your community and your listeners. We really appreciate having a platform like this. So thank you.
Delighted. And you guys out there, look after yourself. Make the most out of every second of this beautiful day. Bye. Dream on, dream on.